compliance protects the organization, culture protects the people.
Welcome to Workplace Unfiltered, powered by Secure Place. This is our very first episode, and I can't think of a better way to kick things off than with the conversation we are about to have. Today, we are talking about something every leader thinks they have figured out until an actual emergency walks through the door: fire, a medical crisis, a remote employee in distress at 11 p.m. with nobody watching. My guest today has spent over 15 years building HR functions, from traditional IT services to scaling people functions inside SaaS companies from the ground up. She's also a recent HR award winner right here in Gujarat. Please welcome Sneha Sata. Hi Sneha.
Hi Rishva, greetings to you and lovely introduction. Thanks a lot for those kind words. I'm really excited and honored to be talking here today alongside you and looking forward to this conversation.
So let's just start with the award itself. What did winning an HR award in Gujarat mean to you personally? And what gap in the industry do you think it actually recognizes?
Wow. Well, winning an award was definitely a proud moment, but to be honest, more than pride, it gave me a perspective. See, when you work in HR, and a lot of our fellow fraternity people will relate to this, most of your work is not really always very visible. People don't always see the difficult conversations, the decisions behind the scenes, or the moments where, as an HR person, you're trying to balance between what's right for the business with what's right for the people. So, having such work recognized by leading HR communities in Gujarat like HR Shapers and Being HR is incredibly meaningful. And honestly, for me, it is not about just an individual recognition. I see these as a reflection of how HR profession itself is evolving. We are no longer expected to simply hire people, run payroll, or just ensure compliance. Today's HR leaders are helping shape businesses in the strategy, building the organization culture, building the leadership capabilities, and employee experience. We are influencing how organizations grow, adapt, and build resilience. I also think this award recognizes something we've quietly witnessed over the last few years, especially in Gujarat's growing ecosystem of startups and SaaS companies. HR has earned a stronger seat at a leadership table. We are trying to bridge this gap, and this award reflects it, that it is not HR as just in a support function, but also recognizing HR as a strategic business partner. And I'm glad to see that gap is getting smaller.
Beautifully framed, Sneha. So let's dive deeper and let's talk about your experiences. Like, what's the single biggest people challenge Gujarat based organizations are silently struggling with right now?
Uh, in my experience, if I had to choose one, Rishva, I would say it's building a culture of trust at your organization and not just managing talent. Over the last 15 years, I have had opportunity of working across different stages of businesses and organizations. I've worked with traditional IT services setups, right from there to building HR functions ground up for SaaS product and startup companies. One pattern I have consistently observed is that while organizations invest in attracting the great talent, they don't always invest enough in creating the environment where the talent can truly thrive. Many companies, and I say it from my experience, they genuinely want employees to take ownership. They want their employees to think like entrepreneurs and make decisions. But at the same time, we sometimes hold too tightly. We focus on where people are working from, how much time they are spending in the office, how many hours they are logging in, or trying to want a visibility into every decision or action that they make. There's a subtle difference, in managing performance and managing people. And sometimes, truly, without even realizing it, we confuse the two. See, when employees feel that they are trusted, they naturally become more accountable. But when every decision needs approval or every action is under a microscope and monitored, people gradually stop taking initiatives because they don't feel empowered to do so. So for me, the conversation here is not about, working from office versus remote or giving flexibility versus less flexibility. It's all about leadership mindset. And when we are building the organizations, well, people feel trusted enough to take ownership. That's a question we should be asking ourselves. Because ownership certainly isn't something you demand, it's something you enable. And I genuinely believe, as organizations in Gujarat, to get this right, they are the ones who will combine accountability with trust and are the ones who will attract right talent and retain them as well.
That's so true. Like ownership is something which needs to be taken care of in every organization. Now, I just heard the word trust in your this conversation, and I really want to know more about it. Let's get practical for a second. If an emergency happened at your workplace today, CPR, fire, uh, mental harassment, or anything, how confident are you that your employees would know exactly what to do in that situation?
Wow, that's a heavy one, and this is a question I think today everyone, every company and leadership team should be asking themselves. When we hear, the word workplace safety, as you rightly said, the trust and safety, most of us, I think, immediately the first thing that will come to our mind is fire drills, CPR trainings, evacuation plan, physical security. Uh, these are important and they will continue remaining incredibly important, especially I would say for the offices and organizations that work out of office or manufacturing setups, factories or customer sites. But being very frank, today's workplace, Rishwa, hasn't no limited itself just to these office sites. Our workplace has expanded beyond four walls. If I have to talk about my current organization, Aavenir, we are a 100% remote organization. So while physical risks look different for us, our responsibility towards the safety of employees hasn't changed. We think about situations like, online harassment, mental well-being, cyber incidents, or employee facing a personal emergency while working alone. Whether our employees are sitting in office or working remotely as per today's evolved workplace ecosystem, the question remains the same. Do they really know what to do in such emergency situation? Do they know whom to reach out to? And most importantly, do they trust their employers that they'll be supported? To me, preparedness isn't measured by just the number of policies we have. It is measured by how confidently your employees can respond in such emergency situation. And that is what creates a safe and secure workplace.
Absolutely. That's so true. Follow up on that, like when was the last time your organization ran a practical training session? Like not another compliance slide deck, but actual training. Like I remember when I was working previously, even my company was remote, but we had certain sessions on Posh, not of course not in this much depth, but yeah, I remember we had some of the sessions on Posh and I think mental stress and harassment.
Wow, you hit the nerve right. Of course, nobody remembers those boring PowerPoint presentations all along, right? I've never believed people learn through PowerPoint presentations in first place. Practical training looks again very different depending on the nature of your workplace. An office may conduct evacuation drills, first aid training, you have the floor marshals. Manufacturing unit may regularly practice emergency response procedures. In a remote organization like ours, we focus on scenarios employees are more likely to encounter. Since you mentioned POSH and the related training, I think that's one thing that everyone always feel very shy of getting into, or they feel it's a waste of time. But how do you actually respond if somebody reports harassment during a virtual meeting? It's a real practical scenario. What should a manager do if an employee suddenly becomes disengaged or shares signs of emotional distress? How do you escalate concerns quickly in a remote environment? I remember the last post training I attended was actually a 3 year session, and it was not boring because we actually touched base on real time problems. We had role plays that had to be enacted. There were real time movies, clips that we had shown as a training session. And these are the situations that are, as managers and employees, they could relate to because they saw it that in real life they are more likely to encounter it. And the reality is that people will always remember situations that you have discussed or experienced, and not slide decks that they have watched 6 months or 12 months ago. And that's why I think organizations need to move beyond compliance training and PPTs and create a learning experience that will reflect the way people actually work.
So here's another uncomfortable question. Is employee well-being and workplace safety actually measured in most organizations, or is it just assumed?
Okay, looks like today we are going to have a series of difficult conversations, but I think that's what we are here to address, for the industry.
Yes.
So I genuinely believe we are at a very interesting stage in as an industry today. Most organizations genuinely care about employees' well-being and workplace safety, especially after the pandemic and the post-COVID impact. I think people have become more woke towards the well-being and workplace safety, but the truth is, very few measure it with the same rigor that they measure revenue, productivity, or customer satisfaction. See, in many cases, we rely on assumptions. For instance, if there haven't been any incidents reported, we assume everything is fine. If engagement scores, your NPS scores look healthy, we assume employees feel safe. But silence doesn't always mean safety, right? Uh, Whether you're an office-based organization, you're working from office, working remote, hybrid, leaders need better visibility into what's really happening today, with the employees. So for us, let me say what we do as a remote organization. We've had to be far more intentional about regular check-ins, manager conversations, creating multiple channels for employee to reach out. But I think this applies equally to even traditional workplaces who are working out of office, And I believe firmly that this is also where technology today can make a meaningful difference. Platforms that can help organizations proactively monitor safety, simplify reporting, support emergency responses, and also provide actionable insights will actually move us from being reactive to being preventive. The future isn't about just having policies in place, it's about having the right data and visibility to act before small concerns really end up becoming bigger problems. And let me not shy away by saying that I firmly believe that you guys at Secure are bringing a revolutionary shift, towards this mindset. So kudos for that.
Yeah, absolutely. From reactive to preventive, that's for sure. We really want people to be proactive and just don't get panicked instead of react to it in a very matured and understanding way. Sneha, talking about secure place, looking safe on paper and actually being safe has a lot of difference, like, right? So, based on that, my next question to you would be, what's the real difference between a company that's compliant and a company that's actually safe?
Wow, I think this is one of the biggest misconceptions in our profession, Rishva, and as you rightly put, compliance and safety, while they are connected, they're not the same thing. Compliance is about meeting the legal requirements, ensuring that the policies exist, ensuring the mandatory training is completed, the committees are formed, audits are done, documentation is in place. That's the foundation, but safety begins where the compliance ends. To elaborate more on this, see, I've met many organizations, and something as recent as last week where I was talking to an industry expert, and we had this chat where the common observation was that we see a lot of companies that are fully compliant on paper, and yet when you go deep down to the core of it, the employees still don't know who to approach if they face harassment at workplace, if they witness unethical behavior or simply need help. I've also seen organizations with fewer formal processes but leaders who have built tremendous trust where employees feel comfortable speaking up their mind way up early even before the issue becomes and results into a crisis. The real question is not always about do we have a policy, it's do your employees trust the policy enough to use it? That's where the culture comes in place. To me, compliance protects the organization, culture protects the people. The strongest organization will never choose between the two. They invest always in both of them. And I think that's where the leadership makes all the difference.
So let's talk trust directly then. Do you think employees genuinely trust internal HR when it comes to sensitive reporting? And why? Or why not?
Difficult pill to swallow, but I think we've made a significant progress there as HR as a profession. But if I'm being really very honest, I don't think we are where we need yet to be. Employees don't decide whether to trust HR based on just what we say to them. They decided based on what they see. They decided based on how the previous complaints were handled. Their first level of experience. They observe very keenly on whether the confidentiality was maintained or not, irrespective of the seniority of the people involved in it. That is what builds the or breaks the trust for any employee with their HR. One challenge I have seen across many organizations, including in my all the journeys, there is a very strong perception that HR ultimately represents the company's interest. Whether this entire perception is entirely fair or not, it does influence whether the employees will choose to speak up or not. As HR leaders, I would say we can't just simply ask employees that okay, we are HR, so trust us. We have to earn that trust every single day through fairness, transparencies, confidentiality, and consistency. Consistency is the key here. But you know, employees will trust your systems. They will not trust them blindly. What they look for more is how your leaders are using these systems. So at the end of the day, the question isn't whether your organization has a robust reporting mechanism or the best of the HRs. It's whether employees genuinely believe whether they'll be heard or not, or whether they'll be protected or not, or whether the organization is being fair to them. And I think that's the real test for no trust that any HR has to go through.
Have you ever personally seen a situation where the reporting system itself become the problem for the employee?
Having spent 15 years there, I'm sure I have gone through all these ups and downs myself. And to answer your question, Rishva, unfortunately, yes. Maybe not always, because the process was flawed or because, the employees didn't believe the process would protect them. Over the years, I've spoken to many employees. I've come across many of them who've hesitated just to report concerns because they were worried about being labeled, difficult, damaging relationships with their manager, or feeling afraid that it might affect their future opportunities at the company. Sometimes, these fears were based on personal experiences. Other times, they were simply shaped by stories that they've heard from others, but then those others are also part of the ecosystem. So, whether those perceptions are accurate or not, they definitely influence the behavior of our, all the employees. That's why organizations have to look beyond simply creating reporting channels and systems and processes in place. What we really need to ask is, have we created enough trust for people to actually use them? A reporting mechanism is not only effective, but it is very useful when the confidence of employees is built in it. There is another area where technology can really help. Secure, confidential reporting platforms like yours can really make a difference. It can make life easier for the employees to come forward, especially when they are unsure or uncomfortable. But that's not the only solution. If the leadership is not really responding with fairness, transparency, and most importantly, empathy, even the best systems and policies would not earn people trust. Processes are always going to enable reporting, and culture encourages it. I think that's all about it.
So let's look ahead and see, where these organizations are making an environment which is very healthy for any employee to report to their HR directly and be very upfront of their situation without getting afraid of what that scenario would bring to their future.
Sure.
So, based on this, again, like where do you see workplace safety heading in the next 3 years for Indian SMEs and mid-sized companies? And of course, budget is also a criteria which they are looking for. So,
Sure. I think great question, Rishwa. I personally think we are going to see three important shifts, for the Indian SMEs in the coming years, especially with all the growing and boosting, GCCs coming in place. So I think the first is moving from being reactive to being proactive. I think we hear these words almost every day in one or the other form during our meetings or conversations, but traditionally, if I talk of organizations, usually they respond to what happens. Going forward, I believe we'll be investing much more in identifying risk way too early, whether it's employee burnout, workplace conflicts, safety incidents, or behavioral trends. So that's the first major shift. Talking of it, moving to the next part, I think the second shift is going to be, in broadening our understanding of workplace safety. I think breaking that glass ceiling of what workplace safety
yeah.
actually is. We've primarily always focused for years, on physical safety, and for all right reasons. I'm not against that. But today, I think more than physical safety, it's equally important that psychological safety, digital safety, employee well-being are even more crucially important. A safe workplace is one where people feel protected physically, respected emotionally, and supported professionally. So I think broadening that horizon is going to be a major second shift. And since you wanted three, I think the third shift and undeniable, undistributed is the shift around the whole technology use, in
Yes.
today's world. So, see, technology is never going to be replacing the good leadership, but it's certainly today, especially in AI era, it's helping leaders make better decisions. Real-time reporting, emergency response systems, safety analytics, learning platforms, predictive insights, they'll all become much more common, specifically as these solutions become more accessible for SMEs. So all in all, I genuinely believe organizations that embrace these three changes would not be just building safer workplaces, but they are building stronger culture, stronger employer brands, and ultimately a stronger and successful business.
So, as you said, like technology is double-edged sword, though, isn't it?
Yes.
What role should it play in making workplaces safer without making employees feel surveilled? You know?
Okay, I might be at the risk of sounding repetitive, but the key word here is trust.
Yeah.
That's the core. See, while technology should make employees feel supported, not monitored, there's a big difference here. Today we are seeing AI and technology transform every aspect of the workplace, and you rightly said it's a double-edged sword. And workplace safety is also something which is not at an exception here. Using responsibly, AI can also help us identify patterns that humans might eliminates the human biases. It can help highlight trends in employees' concerns, identify gaps in trainings, indicators, highlighting indicators of burnout, or even help organizations respond more quickly during emergencies. That's incredibly powerful because it allows us to become proactive rather than simply reacting after something has really gone wrong. But as we always hear, everything comes with a pinch of salt. So AI again should never replace human judgment. it's not going to understand the context in the way people can. It can't show you empathy. It can't build trust after a difficult conversation. No, those are really some leadership responsibilities. Those are people responsibilities that organizational leaders should kind of bring forward to. The role of technology here is to give leaders better information so they can make better decisions. And equally important is transparency. Employees should know what data is being collected, why it's being collected, and how it will be used. If at any point they feel threatened that technology is going to capture, record, or monitor data that might be used against them instead of protecting them, I think that trust will start eroding, and we don't want that. So, in my simple belief, let AI do or let technology do know what it's good at, identify patterns, improve response time, and reduce manual effort, and let people do what they are good at: listening, empathizing, making fair decisions, and building culture. So, yes, future isn't AI versus human; it's AI enabling humans.
So true. I'm so glad we have talked about so many things like workplace safety and culture, the gap between policy and practice, the future of HR. And now I think I just want to directly come to the questions, which is what's one thing every HR leader watching this should do this week to make their workplace safer? Because as you know, we are building secure place and we are wanting uh, all the organizations to come forward and do this for their employees. So yeah.
Well, yes, I think important question, and definitely let's try and see if we can give some takeaway to our fellow industry professionals. Rishva, if I could recommend just one thing, to all my fellow colleagues and HR professionals, it would be this: that just go and have that one conversation you've been postponing. Not a conversation of another policy review or a mandatory awareness email, or just a standard quarterly meetup or check-ins. Just have a genuine conversation with an employee or a small group of employees, whatever your structure and ecosystem allows, and ask them one simple question: is there anything happening here that people know about but don't talk about? I know this sounds too good to be true, and right out of the book, but I think that's the key. The key here as an HR is to just listen. Don't try to interrupt them. Don't try to defend anything. Don't try to solve anything immediately. Just listen. Because sometimes the biggest workplace risks aren't hidden because people don't see them. They're hidden because people assume no one wants to hear about them. I've always believed that employees usually know what's broken long before leadership does. In my experience, I think the best of the initiatives, the best of the outcomes or changes we've brought in are not the conversations I've done through quarterly, monthly check-ins or mandatory check-ins with my employees, but simply the conversations that led from a simple tea group to a coffee chats that we've had, and which actually made a difference. So, as HR, I would say our responsibility is to create an environment where they feel safe enough to tell us. Sometimes the most impactful safety initiative does not start with technology or policy. It starts with a conversation. So just go and grab that coffee with your employee.
Yeah, so basically, HR plays a very important role between an employee and an organization. And you're you just addressing all the HRs and telling them to be, very friendly with the employees when it's not up to work. Obviously, when it comes to work, they have to change their mindset. So,
Yes.
if you could change one thing about how Indian companies treat employee well-being, what would it be? Like,
Wow. Again, this is a very preconceived notion, and I would like to break the myth here, at least in my humble opinion. Uh, let if it's to me to change that, I would make employee well-being a leadership metric and not just an HR metric. It cannot be just in single HR owners to own what employee well-being is, because today almost every organization talks about well-being. and they are encouraging, it's all good. But in many companies, it is still seen something as an HR owns it. It is an HR's job to make sure that employee well-being is right. I don't think so. That's a sustainable model. The quality of employees' experience is influenced every day by the manager, their peers, their subordinates, the leadership team, and the culture they work in. So imagine if organizations start measuring leaders just the way they do it for business performances, the revenues, the quota, their overall delivery outcomes. But they're also being measured for how well they develop their people, how is the retention rate of talent in their teams, how they are building trust in their teams, and most importantly, how the psychological safe team is being created by that leader or by that manager. I think that is where we will see different behaviors. Because, if I have to give you a reality check, Rishva, people don't leave organizations, because HR did not organization enough engagement activities, or we did not do a lot of fun Fridays. They often leave because of the experience they have, with leadership every single day. The moment you make leaders equally accountable for employee well-being, where you make managers accountable, for the psychological safety. Yes, HR is a people function, but then understand HR is not the only human being in the company. You work with a lot of other humans, and everyone is accountable for that emotional safety.
As an HR leader, if secure and psychologically safe workplaces became the norm across Gujarat, what kind of transformation do you think we would see?
Well, wow. So, if I'm being honest, I think we'd unlock a different level of talent and innovation. See, Gujarat has always been known for its entrepreneurial spirit, the manufacturing excellence, growing startup ecosystems, and let alone a lot of GCCs, are now setting up their base here. We have an incredibly capable talent pool, and I'm way proud to say that, being a hardcore Gujarati myself, I think we have a lot of potential here. Now imagine combining that with the workplace where employees genuinely feel respected, heard, and safe to contribute. See, Gujaratis are born fearless. They are all they are tagged as they come with business mindset. So ownership is in their DNA. Now, when you combine that mindset, with a safe, secured workplace, people don't have to spend their energy worrying about whether they'll be judged for asking right questions, reporting concerns, admitting mistakes, or even use that energy to solve problems, innovate, collaborate, or lead. Any of those. That's the kind of culture every organization should aspire to build. At least that's what I would suggest for all the existing and upcoming companies in Gujarat. And to add to that, I firmly believe, Vishwa, that the initiatives like Secure Place that you guys are bringing in, it's encouraging organizations to think, even more proactively. What we've been talking about all this conversation, like being proactive than reactive. So being proactive about these workplace safety, emergency preparedness, employee well-being, all of this will play an important role in that journey. Whether it's through better processes, stronger leadership, or technology platforms, every step will strengthen the trust, and it's a step in right direction. So that's a real opportunity, and not just for building safer workplaces, but building workplaces where people can do the best work of their lives. So yes, that's what I feel.
Thank you so much, Sneha. I think if there is one takeaway from today, apart from, of course, being proactive than reactive, it would be, culture protects the company, compliance protects the company. Every leader watching this needs both. To everyone listening, go have that one conversation you have been postponing this week. That's a wrap on our very first podcast of Workplace Unfiltered. Thank you for being here with us. We will see you next time. And it was lovely, lovely having you, Sneha. And looking for more such conversations ahead as well. We would want to have you more in our podcast and, make people aware about what actually a healthy and safe workplace looks like.
Thank you, Rishva. I thoroughly enjoyed our conversations. Thanks for bringing in great questions, which are really the pain areas, the challenge areas, and the future, what HR professionals or us as an industry in Gujarat and in India are looking at. I really enjoyed having this conversation with you and looking forward to more. So, thank you.
Me too. Yes. Thanks, Neha.